Imagine an organization with billions in assets, a tightly controlled global community, and a history of unwavering loyalty from its members. But what if the very foundation of this organization begins to crack? This is a 3-part series entitled The Greatest Threat That Could End the Jehovah's Witnesses in 2025. Across the world, challenges are emerging, challenges so significant they could threaten everything this institution has built. Could this be the greatest threat they've ever faced? What is this greatest threat? Stick with me and be able to expose the Jehovah's Witnesses' greatest threat in 2025. Buckle up as we expose the Jehovah's Witnesses' greatest threat in 2025. The first question that we have to answer on Tell Me Dr. K is, why is the Jehovah's Witnesses facing so many lawsuits? To understand why Jehovah's Witnesses are facing such unprecedented legal crisis, we must look at 3 factors: their history of child abuse cover-ups, controversial labor practices, and the damaging effects of shunning policies. So these are critical factors that we need to look at as we look at the Jehovah's Witnesses' greatest threat in 2025. First, let's look at child abuse cover-up. Jehovah's Witnesses have been criticized for enforcing the so-called 2-witness rule, a policy that requires 2 people to verify any allegation of wrongdoing, even in cases as horrific as child sexual abuse. And if no witnesses exist, the case is often buried. So just imagine the countless number of children who have reported, or parents who have reported to the Jehovah's Witnesses, particularly to the elders, and because there was no one present at the time when the abuse took place, there is nothing they can do about such an issue. The case is buried.
I came to sit and talk with Jan.
Hi, Jan. How's it going? Come on in.
She had been a Jehovah's Witness for 23 years. As a teenager, she experienced verbal abuse from an elder and his wife. Later in life, she was disfellowshipped because of the action she took in the hopes of divorcing her ex-husband. So there was no disciplinary actions towards the elder or the wife?
No. Years after it had happened, when I finally was able to talk about it, more so in public, I did approach the elders in my new congregation regarding what had happened. And unfortunately, because there weren't 2 witnesses to any of this, it was just me, they weren't able to do anything. They essentially said, there's nothing we can do. The only thing that we can do is leave it in Jehovah's hands.
Now, this defies logic because it's common knowledge, it's common sense that when a person wants to abuse a child, he will not do it where other people can see him or her. They will normally do it in privacy. So, how is it possible that you find witnesses to such a case? Over 1,000 cases of child abuse were documented within Jehovah's Witnesses in Australia alone. Not one was reported to the police. Now, the requirement by law is that if you are aware or a child reports that he has been abused, it is important to report to competent authorities so that those authorities can actually do thorough investigations and then bring the culprit to book. But as far as the Jehovah's Witnesses are concerned, when such a thing happens in their community, it is buried. Instead of the police being the first point of contact or the first place to report such an allegation, they first have to report to their service department at HQ, who gives the instructions and guidance as to what needs to be done. And this makes the governing body of the Jehovah's Witnesses, which is the overall leadership of the Jehovah's Witnesses, complicit in this child abuse. On top of this, cases in the US have resulted in multi-million-dollar judgments, like the $35 million decision in Montana and another $40 million in North Dakota in 2023, because the organization failed to protect children from known predators. But the legal trouble don't end with abuse. Jehovah's Witnesses are facing accusation of exploiting unpaid labor, especially in construction projects across countries like Canada and Europe. Lawsuits are calling attention to what some describe as modern-day exploitation system. Now, for you to be able to appreciate what we are talking about here is that the members of the Jehovah's Witnesses sect are required to contribute labor as part of what they call theocratic projects or theocratic constructions. And in most cases, this is considered as part of their worship. Is part of their requirements. So you find that whenever they are building any project, members have to provide free labor, including high-cost projects. And even where you are working full-time, they are also required to work for free. They are provided some basic upkeep support, but it's not something that you can do much with. And this is what I call holy slavery. Then there's the deeply divisive practice of shunning, cutting off members who leave or question the faith. Countries like Spain and Norway have seen former members sue the organization, claiming psychological harm from this practice. The legal world is taking note. In case you're not familiar with what the shunning is, here is a short clip about the Jehovah's Witnesses policy on shunning.
Well, let's talk about the disfellowshipping arrangement. To begin, it would be good to read the scriptural basis for disfellowshipping. It is found at 1 Corinthians chapter 5, so if you would like to open your Bibles there, we will start reading with verse 9 of 1 Corinthians 5. And so at the end of verse 13, he adds, "Remove the wicked person from among yourselves." Notice that this inspired instruction is worded as a command, not a suggestion. Well, this presents a challenge to each of us when it is a beloved friend or relative who is disfellowshipped. Will we be submissive and yield to the judgment of the elders who handle the matter? So what is the very best thing we can do for those who are disfellowshipped? We already read it in 1 Corinthians 5:11. Stop keeping company with them, not even eating with them. And speaking of the same sort of person, the Apostle John wrote it, 2 John 10, "Do not receive him into your homes or say a greeting to him." Now, our loyalty is on the line, not to the disfellowship person, but to God, who is watching to see whether we will abide by his command not to have contact with those who are disfellowshipped. Some of Jehovah's people may think this is too drastic, and that their keeping in contact with the disfellowshipped friend or relative is a kindness. But they could not be more wrong about that. You see, it may salve their own feelings, but they would be doing the worst possible thing for the disfellowship person.
Of course, they have made some minor adjustments to this policy.
What if a disfellowship person comes to a congregation meeting? Under our current arrangement, we don't say a greeting to individuals who've been removed from the congregation. However, the governing body has decided that publishers can use their Bible-trained conscience to decide whether to give a simple greeting and welcome a disfellowshipped individual who attends a congregation meeting.
Hi, so good to see you here.
Thank you.
While we wouldn't have an extended conversation or socialize with such a person, we do not need to ignore him completely.
But the central theme still remains that if you are excommunicated, a polite way of saying if you are chaste, or when you are disfellowshipped, in other words, excommunicated, then it means that everyone, including your family members, will have to shun you.
This presents a challenge to each of us when it is a beloved friend or relative who is disfellowshipped. Will we be submissive and yield to the judgment of the elders who handle the matter? We should accept the fact that they are in a position to be more objective.
Now, if you are enjoying this program, don't forget to like, subscribe, and smash that notice bell so that every time I upload a new video, you will be notified. Let's look at major lawsuits around the globe. It's important to note that the lawsuits are not just restricted to the United States in the cases that I've just mentioned. They are global, and they are shaking the very foundation of the Jehovah's Witnesses organization. Let's look at a few of these lawsuits around the globe. Firstly, Australia. The Royal Commission exposed decades of abuse cover-ups, leading to lawsuits across the nation. As a result of what the Royal Commission exposed, a number of victims are suing the Jehovah's Witnesses across Australia. Let's go to the United States. With settlements nearing 65 million, the US has become ground zero for these legal battles. Canada. Class action lawsuits are pushing the organization to the brink, alleging systematic abuse with potential damages in millions of dollars. In Norway, after revoking their religious status and stripping 1.6 million in annual funding, lawsuits continue to pile up. Russia. Russia, classified as an extremist group in 2017, Jehovah's Witnesses lost over $30 million in assets. Here is a clip about this ruling in Russia.
On November 12, 2014, the Supreme Court of the Russian Federation upheld a lower court decision to liquidate the legal entity of Jehovah's Witnesses in Samara, one of the largest cities in Russia. The Supreme Court dismissed the witnesses' appeal contesting the allegations of extremism, the actions of the police, and the heavy-handed punishment. How did Russian law enforcement authorities liquidating the Samara legal entity? And what does this mean for Jehovah's Witnesses in Russia?
Netherlands and the UK. Abuse survivors are filing negligence lawsuits, adding to the global outcry. And wait, there's more. Spain. Lawsuits over emotional harm are challenging the toll of disfellowshipping practices. In Belgium, discrimination lawsuits reflecting a growing ethical crisis within the organization. New Zealand. Legal investigations into abuse mishandling are ramping up with mounting pressure. Now, all these lawsuits are leading to a financial fallout. Now, let's talk about numbers. The financial fallout is actually staggering, and it is beginning to show. Jehovah's Witnesses have already paid millions in abuse settlements, $65 million in the US alone, North Dakota, $40 million, and ongoing lawsuits across Canada, Europe, and Australia. And we are looking at a figure that could soar into the hundreds of millions. To stay afloat, the organization has sold prime real estate, including their iconic Brooklyn headquarters. While these sales have generated more than $1 billion, other sources say $2 billion, insiders suggesting of this money is being funneled directly into legal defenses and settlements, leaving little for future growth. And unfortunately, that's not all. With countries like Norway revoking their religious status, Jehovah's Witnesses have lost $1.6 million in annual funding. This could just be the beginning as other nations follow suit. What is the greatest threat that threatened the survival of Jehovah's Witnesses in 2025? Mounting lawsuits that can amount into the hundreds of millions as globally. Instead of the Jehovah's Witnesses focusing on evangelizing, they are spending a lot of time, energy, and resources in legal defenses and settlements. And also another factor is that in the selling of the real estates, they've had to sell some kingdom halls. And therefore, some of the members have to go and start attending meetings in the nearby places, which directly or indirectly is going to impact on the growth of the Jehovah's Witnesses sect. So the question is, what happens next? In the next episode, we examine how these legal battles are tearing the organization apart from inside. Can the Jehovah's Witnesses survive, or is this the beginning of their end? We'll find out in episode 2. I hope you found this video beneficial, and if you did, please don't forget to like, subscribe, and smash that notice bell so that every time I upload a new video, you'll be notified. Then you can decide whether to watch it immediately or watch it later. If you think that this video will benefit another person, please don't forget to share with them. You can share with as many people as you can. If you have any questions, you are seeking clarifications, or you want to challenge what I've said, please don't forget to put it in the comment section below. We value your comments. Now, to watch part 2 of this video, click on this link.